Now, the UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer has clashed with the Conservative leader Kemi Badenoch over Starmer's former comms director Matthew Doyle, who was given a life peerage last year despite Doyle's connections to convicted sex offender Sean Morton. Joining us live now out of the UK is political commentator James Matthewson. Good to see you, James. So the pressure certainly building on the PM.
Yeah, absolutely, Pete. It's a really difficult situation for Keir Starmer right now. The whole of the UK has been thrown into disarray by the Epstein files, of course, and his connection with Peter Mandelson, who he had appointed as the US ambassador, despite the knowledge that he had maintained that relationship with Epstein beyond his conviction. So that was already an issue for the Prime Minister and for the UK government. But now we've had this other story that's come up with Lord Doyle, as former Chief of Communications, about the fact that he had been connected to a serial sex offender called Sean Morton. And it's not even just Lord Doyle either. There's been Scottish Labour Party politicians today who've had the whip withdrawn from them because of this, because of their connection to this Sean Morton individual as well. Now, had the Epstein stuff not already had the spotlight on it, perhaps this wouldn't have grown the legs that it has. But tonight, the Labour Party's in disarray, the Prime Minister's still in crisis, and nothing seems to be being done about the wider situation around the Epstein files.
Well, it continues to bring or call into question Starmer's judgment, right?
That's the biggest question about it. It's about judgment, isn't it? About who we trust, who we let in. And Peter Mandelson, for example, he wasn't a, unknown character. Lots of people knew what Peter Mandelson was like. He'd had to resign twice formally because of his connection to dodgy businessmen, basically. And Epstein is obviously far worse than that. So, there was already a kind of form from Peter Mandelson to trust him with bringing him into your government. Obviously, he's tried to stop the blame and kind of pass the buck on to his chief staff, his chief of staff, Morgan McSweeney, who's resigned. And then Tim Allen, as director of communications, his current director of comms, has resigned as well because of a connection to Mandelson. So they're all trying to, at the moment, cut out a shape of government that isn't impacted by Mandelson. But everyone will remember that it was Keir Starmer ultimately who signed off that appointment. So It's not going away for the Prime Minister.
No, it's not going away. It feels as though the sting has come out of it a little bit, though, as the week has progressed. Is he going to weather this storm, at least in the short term?
Yeah, there's one reason for that, and that's because his opponents, his would-be challengers, they're not ready. They're not ready. So they were thinking, oh, great, here's an opportunity.
Well,
then all of a sudden everyone realised...
Yeah. Aren't his rivals tainted to varying degrees?
Sort of. Not in a similar way to him, but, you've got Angela Rayner, who would be my pick. Angela's still, not long resigned from the cabinet herself after a tax affair issue. That will kind of be cleared up, hopefully, by an investigation, but that's still ongoing. And then Wes Streeting, who was the current health secretary, he's got a load of other skeletons he's dealing with. So they want to try and get their ducks in a row. So I think what's going to happen is they're going to let him run, keep going, keep limping on, if you like, until the May local elections in England, Scotland and Wales. And after that, if the results are as bad as we're expecting them to be for the Labour Party, I think he will resign.
No, I mean, and just for our viewers, just those council elections again in May, I mean, how significant are they?
Yeah, very significant. This is, the equivalent to like the midterms in the US.
Yeah.
It's the first time you would check in democratically since the general election in 2024 before we won, as the Labour Party won that mandate, which was a huge majority. Since then, everything has gone downhill progressively. So we will see what the result is. But the Reform Party in the UK, led by Nigel Farage, expecting to pick up some votes significantly in Labour territory. And then parties like the Lib Dems and the Greens on the left, they've seen a resurgence as well. So at the moment, they're losing at both ends of the spectrum. And that's not going to do well for them.
Well, I mean, what about Kemi Badenoch? I mean, I'm just tracking the polls as you are, and I noticed that like a little bit's come off Reform, not much, but a little bit's come off Reform, and the Tories are on something of an upward trajectory. Has Kemi Badenoch got a little wind in her sails at the moment?
A little bit, I think. But I mean, obviously I'm going to be biased, as I'm never going to praise a Tory. But at the same time, undoubtedly they're doing better than they were. But that's because they were basically at rock bottom after the last election. You couldn't do much worse than they had. But Kemi Badenoch's certainly getting more confidence behind her, because initially in this role as leader of the opposition, she didn't seem that confident. But right now, come on. it's open goal after open goal. If she can't
Sure.
score those, then she
Sure.
shouldn't be in that job.
Yeah.